office for 10 years.
Even longer, imagine.
At least. Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan, you wanted to make your contribution.
Yes, I first of all wanted to also add my voice to the fact that the President has done very well. I want to congratulate him for, first of all, for the first time for the government to admit that in fact we had killer squads that were authorized by the government to carry extrajudicial killings and to disband that particular unit. This is a significant move. But I think we can go beyond that. You know, when we criticize IPOA, I think IPOA can do the job. IPOA is a constitutional body. But when the government itself is breaking its own rules, when the government is operating unconstitutionally by carrying these things out, all the other government bodies, whether they're independent or not, are put in a very difficult situation. First of all, in terms of funding, IPOA doesn't have sufficient funding. It doesn't have sufficient personnel because the scale of the extrajudicial killing is so large that it requires a special inquiry to be able to deal with that. The second element I would say is to empower government departments to deal with these issues constitutionally, because until now, if you have a unit that is authorized to do these things, you cannot have another government department investigating that particular agency for work that has been authorized by that particular government. Now that the President has brought that to a closure, we need to go further by beginning to look for the truth. We need to know the truth. We need to know what happened. We need justice for the victims. And that requires something much more than IPOA or IPOA can do. IPOA can continue to investigate some of the cases of disappearances, but this issue is so big that it requires more than Band-Aid. It requires more than firefighting from a small agency like IPOA. And I think that's why I think it would be good for the President if he went one step further and said, look, guys, there's no way we can get to the bottom of these things without a special inquiry. And he has now opened a Pandora's box. Let's get to the bottom of that box and see who was doing this, where it has been done, what has happened to these people, so that also the families can come to closure. The people who are affected can come to closure. And I think we need to also tighten our legislation. For example, there is the International Convention for the Protection of all the persons from enforced disappearances. Kenya is not a party to that particular convention. I will call upon the government to quickly ratify that convention so that our legislation and our laws come into line with international standards.
Right.
And that would be just a good beginning. But I think this matter is too big to be dealt by any other agency that is in existence today. We require extra efforts to be able to clean up the system, to bring justice to the victims, and also to build the reputation of our country. You know, are we a human rights country? Are we a democracy? Are we abiding by our constitution? Are we protecting lives? This raises a lot of questions about how the previous governments have operated with that impunity to be able to execute whoever they didn't like whenever they wanted to. And this particular incident is a clear example that, in fact, our police force is rotten. It's not only rogue elements who are doing this. It has been a practice in the entire police force to use extrajudicial killings as a weapon of control. And it is time we brought that to an end and to start on a new chapter.
Very interesting. I'm looking at the mandate of IPOA, and it's quite wide. Part of it is to investigate deaths and serious injuries caused by police action, to investigate police misconduct, to monitor, review and audit investigations and actions by Internal Affairs Unit of the police, to conduct inspections of police premises, to monitor and investigate policing operations and deployment, to review the functioning of the internal disciplinary processes. And of course, the authority is required to prepare performance report every 6 months and an annual report to inform the public of its activities and provide recommendations for improvement of the functioning of the National Police Service. So I don't know who receives that report. Does it come to Parliament? Anyone knows?
Yes, it's a constitutional body that reports. Yeah, but I think if you look at the problem of IPOA, is that IPOA could not do much in this particular case because it was the government itself that had authorized these killings.
But you cannot.
I don't know how the government can investigate itself.
No, but
I think IPOA.
You know, IPOA is not a government; it's an independent authority.
But if you don't have the support of the various government departments to investigate those things, you cannot do these things in isolation.
So does it mean
IPOA cannot just be blamed? All the government departments are against.
I hear you, Honorable Yusuf and Senator Roba. I'm just wondering then, Honorable Kuria, is there a difference between what's on paper and what's in practice?
Absolutely.
You know, when the drafters of our Constitution came up with these institutional bodies like Independent Police Oversight Authority, the essence of them is to be independent, like to call out for when, for example, if they don't receive financial support from the government, like the judiciary has done, you know, with with the independence of the judiciary, they said no. The president has refused to appoint these judges, and the chief justice, the current and the previous chief justice came out strongly and said, if we are to execute our mandate as a judiciary, then you need to appoint these judges. They have said you are underfunding us, so if you're underfunding us, then you're not able to carry out our mandate. So has the Independent Police Oversight Authority come and said, we do not have technical support, we do not have adequate funding? They have not said that they have been compromised. They have not been, because where again does someone who gets aggrieved by, for example, these security agencies go if the body that is said to be independent, as Senator here says that they're not independent, that they're not able to carry out their mandate? Unless you come out and say, we're not able to do this because of 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, you have the security of Kenya, you have the support of the Constitution, and if you came out and said, we're not able to deliver because of 1, 2, 3, then our Constitution provides a recourse on those particular matters. Okay. We've even had several of these independent institutions take the government to court, you know, when the government has not facilitated them as they should be.
I think you're not aware of IPOA's work. For example, in 2014, we had a major police operation in my neighborhood in Eastleigh, in which the citizens of that neighborhood were exposed to unlawful activities by the police. IPOA investigated and, in fact, indicted many police officers and recommended those police officers should be removed or charged. But IPOA's recommendations were never implemented by the police force. So you have to give some of these institutions not only independence on paper, you have to give them the resources and the teeth to be able to do their job. There are a number of recommendations of IPOA, very good recommendations of investigations that they have undertaken that have not been implemented by the other organs of the government. So you would need the government support. And now that the government is out there and it has disbanded this particular body that was dealing with extrajudicial killings, it offers an opportunity for some of the agencies like IPOA to be able to do their job. But IPOA or any other independent body cannot function without the support of the other organs of the government.
Okay. Sam, allow me to throw in
no,
that
this has gone on for so long.
The fundamental of having an independent authority is such that they operate independently, and the reason the argument.
Let me cut you short, because I think what Honorable Hassan is saying, he's not disputing the I in IPOA. He's just saying the practicality of it so far has not been realized. That independence has not been realized because of what has been the government environment. How do we correct that?
And that's what I'm actually saying. That cannot be an argument. You cannot say that as an independent authority, I have not been able to function because the government has not allowed me. Because then essentially what you're talking about is you've declared yourself redundant. The independence of an independent authority is actually that once you're constituted and passed through an act of parliament, is that, like you said, like Mheshimiwa said, you can come out and say, It is clearly stipulated that you should get these resources, and government is actually frustrating me by this. Let me give you another body that actually touches on this missing persons and police services. We have a board called the Victim Protection Board, which has been there for more than 10 years. But previous governments have actually suffocated it in terms of ensuring they don't have resources. The Victim Protection Board, in essence, for instance, when you have an issue of police going rogue, the victim is actually represented by the Victim Protection Board. They are offered a safe house. There are so many things that board is supposed to do, but it has not been operationalized since inception, and previous governments have ensured, because of their interest in these extrajudicial killings, have ensured that board remains redundant. Now, that board, for instance, the guys who have been there have never come out to the public and told us, but this is what is happening. They've never declared that as an independent body, we are supposed to do this, but government is frustrating us this way. So therefore, they cannot come out now and say, oh, by the way, our mandate is this.
Okay.
So we have now the political goodwill, which is a good thing. But any independent authority should not use the fact that government has been suffocating them.
I want us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be talking about other matters, including the fate of the cabinet nominees. We understand that the committee was still grappling over the fate of some 4, or is it 5 nominees? And of course, there's a possibility that the Azimio side may decide to write a minority report, which is quite within the standing orders. We'll talk about that after the break. Stay tuned.